Ex-drinkers of Reddit. What was your damn I need to stop moment? Drove home while I was so drunk I couldn't stand. Saw the damage on my car the next day and had no memory of how I got home. My dad died in a drunk driving accident. I just thought how goddamn stupid do you have to be? Forever grateful I didn't kill myself or anyone else. I still drink from time to time, but I was pretty lax when it came to driving. Never wasted. This question is asked somewhat frequently, and I always answer when I see it. https://www.reddit.com AskReddit comments Jimev serious what was the darkest moment of your life FQG3IBG 998 days sober today. Whoa, that's some scary experience you had. I'm glad the accident wasn't worse, and you have my respect in realizing your problem and getting better. I woke up one night shaking uncontrollably after a binge that was probably a month long. I gave up then and there only to resume heavy drinking a couple of years later. Marriage and fatherhood is what made me stop. Never want to be high while in charge of my kid. Baby doesn't understand daddy has a hangover, wife is pissed that it's your turn at 2 AM. But you're too drunk. Kid has a routine accident. It was a long process that involved me slowly realizing that every time I drank I did something I didn't like myself for. I used alcohol as a tool to hurt myself, and I used it as an excuse to act on my worst emotions. There were no good or fun times I had while drunk that wouldn't have been just as good or better without alcohol. I'd have a shoot day at work, go home and drink about it, wake up with a hangover, have a shoot day at work. My family or my partner would do something to upset me. I'd drink about it and become explosively angry, usually ending up with me breaking shoot and passing out. Wake up the next day feeling horrible physically and so embarrassed that I'd acted that way. My parents were both lifelong alcoholics and my mother has wet brain, alcohol-induced psychosis. She has no idea who I am. She is only 52 years old and she doesn't recognize me. I can't end up like that. I have 5 months sober under my belt, and I have today. Up to the my parents bit, you perfectly described my experience. 2 years sober, leaving my apartment with $0 something and in 1/8 of flour in my pocket. Remembering being at the bar then, waking up on my couch the next morning, still with the same clothes on, in my pocket and a Jack in the Box receipt and no flour. Functional blackouts are totally not chill. Woke up one morning after a house party with a bloody face, but my hands were totally fine. My first thought was, well, at least I probably didn't hurt anybody. High school GF hadn't seen me for a few years and bluntly told me I looked like shoot and need to take better care of myself. She was super into me all through HS, so I went over expecting to get laid, and instead got brutally rejected. Boozing hard really piled on the weight for me. Quit cold turkey and redirected that energy into eating clean and hitting the gym. When I got the urge to get intoxicated, I went to a 24H gym and would run until the urge passed. At 18 years old, overdosing. Psych ward. Rehab. Gave up both drugs and alcohol almost 6 years ago. Glad you got clean. I haven't stopped, but I realized I may have a problem one Friday when my parents were to take my kid, who I have every other weekend, camping. I was stoked that I could spend the weekend full on drinking, and when I drove past my sick grandma's house I saw an ambulance and my first thought was I hope she ain't dead, cause then my parents will not go camping with my son and I won't be able to drink. I hope I don't sound offensive here, but I'm going to hit you from a dad perspective here. If you only have your child every other weekend and you're pumped about missing one of those few weekends so you can get drunk, everyone's moment of clarity is different. For me it was sitting in the shower at 4 AM, violently shaking, covered in vomit and blood, sipping Listerine to keep the fear at bay, whilst attempting to dig out the many pieces of glass lodged in my shoulder and upper back. I stopped for a moment and was like, you know what, this isn't working out for me. Celebrated 5 years last month. Sipping Listerine, scary stuff. Dude, when I realized that I was drinking alone because no one wanted to be around me, was it the potential DUIs and tragedies I narrowly avoided through sheer dumb luck? Was it the constant fights with my wife about how drunk I got all the time? Was it the 2-day hangovers because I didn't know how to not black out? Was it the inability to remember important things that had happened a day or two before? It was none of those. As I laid on my bed with my third killer hangover in as many days, my favorite 7-year-old comes into my room. You don't have to go to work today? That means you can play with me. He was so excited. Not right now, bud. I feel kind of sick. Let me just rest for a little while longer. Okay. His face went from the happiest I'd seen him in a while to tremendously sad. The next words he said were all I needed to hear. You never want to play anymore. You're always sick. And as he walked away to find his mom, so that she could play with him instead of me, my heart broke in two. And then those two halves broke into a million more pieces. I quit drinking a month or two later. New Year's Eve 2016/2017 and haven't touched a drop since. Damn man, this brought tears to my eyes. Realized it was the root cause of all my anxiety, depression, and exhaustion. I didn't full on quit, but I cut back probably 80%. I've actually started having multiple days throughout the week that I don't drink, which is pretty new for me lol. I'm there with you on the no weekdays. Weekends I go over the top and feel like shoot more than half the following week. Wouldn't recommend. When I realized I was drinking upwards of 5 gallons of beer a week and it caused my to get up to 320 pounds. I'm down to 204 now and feeling great. I do still have to occasional drink. Last Friday I had 3 beers and woke up Saturday with a hangover. That sucked. Realizing that it was the alcohol that was contributing most to my rapid weight gain. It's also all the junk food you eat while drunk. People tend to blame alcohol for their weight gain and forget about the 7 chalupas they gobble down at 3 a.m. I got tired of waking up in my car on the freeway doing 90 Richard Pryor. Would be terrifying to come to your senses when your whole body is burning under a flipped car. I was a binge drinker and it was a problem, but I always just wrote it off as letting off some steam and having a good time. Then one night I got the drunk munchies and threw chicken nuggets in the oven at like 3 a.m. and promptly passed out. Filled the house with smoke. My wife was screaming at me. I know that there wasn't any danger of burning the house down since the oven is pretty self-contained, but the idea that I tried to cook anything while blackout drunk was for whatever reason the final straw. I couldn't get the image of causing a fire and not being physically able to help my family out of my head. Haven't had a drink since. I did a dry January. About a week in, I noticed that my arsehole seemed to not leak anymore and shooting felt like shooting again. Not just a bunch of mush falling out of my ass. Also, with no effort at all, I dropped 30 pounds over the month. Brewer's yeast can really mess up the guts. A couple friends and I noticed after going sober that we're very sensitive to beer. One friend to the point of being diagnosed with intolerance. After years of drinking heavily, mixing with other narcotics, I have a vivid suicide dream. I mean vivid. I could describe it to you with such detail to this day. That was almost 11 years ago. I gave up alcohol, opioids and several other bad things. I kept smoking for 4 more years. And now I just drink coffee. Everything else is gone. I quit opiates about 10 years ago, but I can't seem to kick the cigs. Anyone looking to quit, our Stop Drinking is a wonderful, supportive community.